Next, so again, we go back up to here to our Amarone, because I want to leave Barolo for last in terms of talking about it, because that was going to be a bit of a story. Amarone, the grapes that are harvested are actually dried on racks. So here, let me pull up a picture of that. So that's what happens to Amarone. Yeah, they'll take that Corvina grape and they let it sit on these racks out in, after it's harvested in September, October, and they sit there for like a few weeks to get to this like almost raisiny level. It's it's called the appassimento process. I might be butchering the Italian on that. But what it does is it develops like its own unique flavor and characteristics. So, that's, you might be, in a lot of Amarone, you're going to have like, there might be almost like a bit of like, almost like that like a raisiny like taste to it, that baked fruit, almost characteristic. And also because it's taking out a lot of that water, there's a lot more sugar to liquid ratio, resulting in like really high alcohol wine. So it would be rare to find an Amarone that is below like 15%. All right, so Barolo. Barolo is kind of known as like, it's referred to as the king of Italian wines. And it, again, also has some very stringent rules to it. 38 months in total aging, and it has to have a minimum of 18 months in oak. Now, that oak rule is a little weird. And that's because for the longest time, Barolo was aged in these giant barrels called botti. But these barrels aren't, I mean, these look shiny and new. Most of the Italian botti are, they're kind of dull in color. They only have like a hole on top, and because they were used for like generations. Yeah, and effectively they were like neutral oak. I don't know if you've ever heard out there aged in neutral oak before. It's essentially a barrel that's been used so much that it has no flavor that it kind of imparts into the wine. And Barolo has always been known, or at least, for the longest time, was known as a very astringent wine that took upwards of like 10 to 15 years to really mature before it was able to be, opened and drunk with any kind of, enjoyment. Before that, it was just, like too tight of a wine. The thing was that back in the 80s, some producers decided to start adopting kind of like the French method, which was using new French oak barrels for their aging process, which softened the wines up considerably faster, and were able to be brought to market well before those that were making in the traditional fashion. This is commonly referred to now as the Barolo Wars, because, I mean, it was like your neighbors, other family members that were, also making Barolo. People just stopped talking to each other over this, because especially because the traditionalists were labeling this new product as not real Barolo. And now most of the warning is over, but it does make picking Barolos a touch chancy, because if you pick one that's over like a decade old, because again, they're much like the Brunello, they won't release like a traditional Barolo for 5+ years, while ones that have been kind of aged in these new barrels, they can you can pretty much drink them pretty effectively in about 2 to 3. But again, if you have something that's like a decade old, you won't know if it already peaked from like 6 to 10 years old, or if it was done in a traditionalist sense where it still almost needs another 5 to 10 years to age to open up. So with Barolos, I would highly recommend, if you really like them, and you're going to try a few of them, like use the Vivino app, or something to that effect, where they'll a lot of people and a lot of descriptors in there will say whether it's traditionally made, or if it's kind of in this new process, so that again you'll know if you need to either decant it or do something to open it up, or if it's almost like past its peak now.